Welcome back to another episode of the Life in the Right Lane podcast. Nicholas and Victoria here. And today we are going through a little bit of Q&A. We asked you guys on Instagram, you can follow us at Life in the Right Lane, to submit some questions on dating, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we've done a few episodes on dating, but it's always just good to hear like what you guys want to hear from us and what would be most helpful for you. So I've noticed like some other podcasts do like Q&As frequently, like every so often. So I thought that would be kind of fun for us to do about specifically dating, because that's really what we're like so passionate about, is just godly dating and keeping him at the center in a world that is pushing him to the side. It's hard to find good, solid, grounded people who have the same faith as you. So we totally get that. Trust me, we get that. It is a rarity to find a good one these days. So yeah, we just wanted to kind of go through questions that you guys submitted, and hopefully they're helpful. So you want to jump right in?
We can, yeah.
Did you have something you wanted to say?
I did want to add that our experience dating might be atypical, but we have quite a bit of history before that. So we rekindled our friendship, I guess. You could say friendship. It was friendship for a brief period. And then dated for 3 months and got engaged. So our story is very quick, and we felt like prior to touching base again, and the backstory to this is that we went to prom together when we were in high school, didn't talk for 6 or 7 years, came back together, started dating, and then got engaged. So, and of course now we're married. Make sure that that's on the table. But one of the things that we found was that the time that we spent in those 3 months was very intentional. And we noticed that when we were dating other people prior in high school, college, after college, our approach was not the same. And there were a lot of gaps in places that we felt like the Lord really helped us to work on, so that when we came together, we were able to approach it much differently. And we saw the fruit of that, and we're still seeing the fruit of it. I think a lot of the work that we put in the dating and into engagement process really paid off for our marriage. And so we want that for you too. A lot of our topics that we like to talk about are about dating, because we know it's confusing and we know it's difficult.
It's hard.
And we want to help. We want to help as best we can. So yeah, with that preface, let's dive in.
That was a good preface.
Thank you.
Okay, so the first question is about a question. Good first date question.
That's a very good question about a question.
It is a very good question. Wow, that's like really vast. So you could go anywhere with that. I think a lot of it depends on your personality, how detailed you want to get on the first date. But I mean, it is important to keep it kind of like lighthearted on the first date. You don't want to get straight into the nitty gritty when you just met them, especially if you didn't know them prior, like you solely know each other by going on a date.
That's a good point. Your prior history does play a part in this, because if you, let's say, went to the same church for 8 years or 10 years, and then you started dating and you've been around this person for a long time, obviously at that point it's a little different. I still wouldn't, on your first official date, go into the deep things, but you build off of whatever you already have in your dating relationship or your friendship relationship. But it is important to ask some good questions, because you only get one first date with the right person.
It's true. It's a good point. So we thought a good blanket question for really anybody would be, what are you passionate about? Like, what are you really interested in? What makes you come alive? What do you get home from work and can't wait to get to do or talk about or serve, or whatever area of life that activity or thing is. And that is a good question for several reasons. One, it checks the box of like, it's just a lighthearted question. Like, I just want to get to know you. Tell me more about you. But it also shows a little bit of their personality and seeing what they're interested in. And this is important. I think I used to think this when I was younger, that we had to like align on all the same things, but you don't want to marry yourself. So it's really important to note that like if they like hiking and you don't, that's not like a deal breaker.
Right.
Like Nicholas is into like all these guitar instruments and banjos, and he's teaching himself the banjo. And like, didn't you play another instrument?
Yeah.
Trumpet?
No.
Oh.
No brass or woodwind. The bass is basically a guitar.
Okay. Well, anyways, I never thought I would like end up with someone who was more like musical.
Says the violinist.
Okay. But I'm not like, that's not like what I'm passionate about. But you love to pick up the guitar, and you do so for 5 minutes here and there throughout the day. So anyways, all that to say, you don't have to like have the same interests and hobbies as them, but it is cool when you do share something and you can talk about that. And it's a good conversation starter, and it's fun when you do have things in common, because that's something you guys can do together. But also, so personality, it's lighthearted, but then it shows their motivation in life. And if they're like a dud now when you guys aren't dating, most likely they're going to continue being a dud when you are dating. So that's really important, I think, especially for women to see that in a man, because the man is to be biblically the provider and the pursuer. So if he's not like being active and involved in things and involved in getting to know you and pursuing your heart and furthering his career and like taking steps, like he doesn't have to be a billionaire by any means, but taking the right steps to be able to provide for you and to love you and a future family well, those are important. And those could be red flags if he's just blah. You know what I mean? Like, you can kind of tell when you meet someone where they're headed in life. And
right.
So I don't know. I feel like that question kind of encompasses a whole lot of things and shows you like several different facets of who they are. And I think that's important, but it's also like a great strategic question you can just slip in there, and they think like, oh, I like swimming. And you're really thinking,
right.
You're thinking more strategic, but they would never be like, that was a really serious question.
Yeah, so that's a good point. And it also matters how you frame it. If you ask someone, what do you like to do? Well, they might say video games, or they might say, I really like to read. But when you ask them, what are you passionate about? There are certain things that we like to do that we're not necessarily passionate about. And so that jumps over the like to do's and gets to the passionates. And the passionate things in your life are the things that, like you said, like make you come alive. And one of the best tips that I could give you on the first date, if you have read the book How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, he speaks about being genuinely interested in other people. And that is a very, very, very important skill when it comes to dating. Because if you are spending all your time thinking about how they are perceiving you, if you're thinking about, well, are they asking enough questions about me? You're really going to miss the evaluation process. Remember that dating is an evaluation. Not so sterile, but you need to remember that this process is supposed to help you find the inner workings of this person to determine, is this the right person to pursue towards marriage? Is this the type of person I could see myself marrying? And so if you are genuinely interested in them, number one, you will get really good rapport early, and asking a lot of questions and follow-up questions, and not just to ask the questions. Like in a job interview, you feel like you have to have questions to ask the interviewer, but seriously ask the questions and go into that date thinking and praying, God, let this short opportunity, whether it's just tonight or many more, be an opportunity to love one of your children and to show them how much you care for them through me. And then I should enter into this date in a mindset of, I'm just going to genuinely get to know one of God's children, my brother and sister in Christ. And at the end of the date, you can decide how things went, but be genuinely interested in the person you're on the date with. Really try to get to know them and really understand why they are the way they are. Sometimes we're not going to know everything on the first date, but this is a really good way to make sure you're getting the most out of the date. And I think it starts with asking questions like, what are you passionate about?
I think that's a really great tip, because in this like me-centered society, we are all about ourselves, and we talk about ourselves constantly, and we want other people to get to know us, or other people to like us, or, you know, share the things about ourselves, rather than taking the focus off of ourselves, like the Bible says, to view others as better than yourselves. Put them above you. And so I think that's a good exercise just in general to do, like with your friends too. And like you're saying, genuinely get to know them, like want to get to know them and see how the Lord created them and the things that he put on their hearts that they're passionate about.
Absolutely. It's important.
There was something that you told me the other day, that when we went to prom, what did your dad say to you? I just thought this was like the most precious thing, and like such great advice to like a high school boy who's about to go to prom. Like, it was just makes my day.
Yeah. So when I was getting ready, my dad came down and said, Nicholas, your only job tonight is to make sure that Victoria is having a good time and you take care of her and respect her. And that my mission that night was to make sure I was taking care of Victoria. And that was really good.
Didn't you say something about like leaving her better than...
I mean, I think
not
I
you
said
found
that.
her, but...
Yeah.
But like leaving the evening, like having brought something to her life rather than like taking it away.
Right. Yeah. I don't think he actually said that, but I think it was implied that in my time in close proximity to you, however long that is, I am going to speak life into you and bring you joy. And at the end of the night, you know, I will have left you in a better place than we started.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great advice. We should think about that with like every person that we're around. Like, how could I leave them in a better state? Like, how could I help leave them in a better state than when we first met up?
Right.
How can I like bring life and joy to them through Jesus and through my example? That's just really cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So the second question that we're going to share is examples of good boundaries and why. And this, I love these types of questions because I just think boundaries are so important, and they don't have to be like so like, you can't do this and you can't do that because you're a Christian and sex is bad and just all these crazy things. Like, I love being able to be like, no, that's so not true. And you can glorify God in your waiting and in being faithful to him and what his word says, and being an example to your friends even. Like, that's amazing. That's bold. That's standing out. That is being a rebel in a society where we all want to be rebels, but really nobody is, because if we're all doing the wrong thing, then who's really a rebel? Anyways, that's just a tangent. Okay, so we said we have a couple here. So the first one is strive to be in settings conducive for proactively getting to know them rather than just like cuddling. Because Nicholas made a great point. Your relationship doesn't grow when you're just sitting on the couch. Like you likely have the TV on. You're likely sitting next to each other rather than facing each other. You're most likely not having like good, well thought out conversations. It may start that way, but I don't know. It just isn't the greatest setting for growing together and getting to know each other. So that's something that I think we could have even done better, because Nicholas had this apartment, and although we were remaining pure for marriage, it does make it really hard when you like what's the word? Intentionally or not intentionally. Like you're the one putting yourself in that situation. Mm-hmm. It's not like you just found yourself there. We made the decision to come over to Nicholas's apartment that night and hang out. And that's great, especially if you are really strong on your convictions to hold back. But also there are so many other like settings and like ways that you can get to know them and things that you guys can do together. You don't always have to like just go to someone's house and hang out and watch a movie. Like
right. And I would encourage you to replace that with something that does make a difference. And I know most people think dates have to cost money, but they don't. You can actually, if it's nice outside, go for a walk outside, go for a hike. Exercise together.
Was it our second date? Our first real date, Nicholas took me to a Sounds game. That was super fun. There were people around. Oh, sorry. Yes, it's a minor league baseball here in Nashville.
Of course, everyone knows the Nashville Sounds, AAA baseball.
I'm so sorry. I completely forgot. We were talking about it the other day with some friends, so I just like naturally was saying the Sounds. So, and then our second, I guess, date, we went hiking, like back to back. I mean, you spent money on the first one, but back to back, we were outside, we were around other people. It was daylight. It wasn't nighttime. So I thought those were really good, like first couple of dates. Yeah. So we were like doing something. It also made it not so awkward. Like, I feel like sometimes, especially when you don't know the person prior to, it can be awkward when you're just like at a restaurant sitting across from each other. Like, okay, well, now what do we talk about? You know?
Yeah, don't put that pressure on yourself.
So yeah, if you're like actively doing something, that's actually helpful and maybe takes the pressure off, because you're not just staring at each other the whole time and feeling like you need to have the right answer that they want to hear. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
so the second piece of this question, another good boundary that we found, we did not do a good job with this one, and I wish we had, and so that is why we're bringing it to you. Don't text all day. Don't be on your phone all day. It's very tempting. When we were dating, we really wanted to talk to each other all the time because we had a lot to say. But the more time you spend in the present, you're able to process things non-emotionally. You're able to just be in your day. And then when you get together in the evenings or at lunch or whenever it is, you have things to talk about, to share about your day. It doesn't need to be this constant 24/7 speaking, because that takes the fun out of it. And I think where we found it to be hard, we never had a problem having a conversation when we were together, but I think it was hard to be present where we were during the day. Right. And part of the dating experience is you are towing the line between I'm in a relationship with someone, but I'm also still single. You know, the Bible, I'm not betrothed. I'm not engaged. So I'm still single, and I need to live my life in a way that still gives me the opportunities to be around the people that I'm with, because once you leave that season of singleness into marriage, you don't have the same opportunities, and the time that you have when you're single is significantly greater than when you're married. The influence, the types of people you hang out with will change. So use that time to the best that you can, and be okay with being away from each other every now and then and being with friends. So texting, being on the phone, it also just creates a lot of problems of conversations that are misinterpreted. So
goodness, yeah.
We would recommend save the conversation for in person.
Yeah. I feel like the only like tensions that many of the few tensions we had were from like miscommunication, I guess, over the phone or over text, mainly over text. And it would have just been so much better if we had waited and then talked about it in person, because we would have understood what the other person was trying to say.
Right.
But yeah, it's funny that you say like, you may like, it's fun to like come back together and have something to talk about. And I was talking with someone the other day, and she was saying that she and her fiance like talked all day, like texted all day when they got married. And so when they got home and were together at home, they like didn't really have anything to say because they knew how each other's day went, and they knew everything that happened. They were literally getting like live updates as the day went on. So it's just so funny to me. Like, that's a good point. Like, leave some excitement for when you guys do come back together and you get to share those things. Like, write them down on your phone so you don't forget. And then also, yeah, it just helps not cause rifts.
Yeah. Okay, so our third question here today, how do you do a couples Bible study? This is something that we have done periodically, but can do a better job of. And it is my opinion that the man is supposed to initiate those Bible study conversations. So it's not that you can't bring it up, ladies, but just you want to find someone, a man that is willing to bring you into those conversations, to lead your family into those conversations. So the way that we typically approach this, if there's something that is going on in our lives or in the world that causes us to say, maybe we should speak and be in the word of this, then we'll go to that book. So we went into Proverbs 2 years ago.
Wow, time flies.
While we were engaged. And that was, excuse me. Something just came in my throat. That was really helpful. And so what we would do is read a section out loud. One of us would read, and then we would do the SOAP method. If you're familiar, that stands for scripture, observations, application, and prayer.
Sorry, I wrote that down really weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had never heard of the SOAP method, but Nicholas was like, what? This was a while ago. And so anyways, yeah, we did follow that, and it was really helpful. It helped like structure our time and make it more effective when we did come together and sit down to read. Right.
So the way that you would do this is once you go through the scripture, you spend time making observations. If you do this in a larger group, a lot of times they'll have you write it down, and then you would go around the circle and share it or whatever. But if it's just two of you, share what you noticed about each section, and then go into a little bit more of an application portion where you're just saying, so based on my observations, based on what we've read, here's how I can apply this to my life. And it can be as simple as, this is something that just helps me to, again, remind myself that God is over all things, is in control of all things, or something very specific that he is being called out or advised. So the application portion really helps. And then that also helps you together to understand what's important in your life, what's going on in your life, one of the questions that you should be asking as you're dating is, what's God showing you right now? What are you learning? And so this would help facilitate that conversation. And then ending in prayer once you're done reading is helpful, because you are cementing it and saying, God, thank you for this word. Please take these application pieces and let them be done. So we've really enjoyed doing that.
Yeah.
The other thing.
He has a prop.
I have a prop. If you want some added help, because some people say, I just don't, there's so many things in the Bible I don't understand. And especially if you're a man who thinks that, and needs extra help, it can be intimidating, right? Because you're supposed to be leading your family in a conversation, and you may not have been a Christian for a long time, or you just might need a little help. So one thing I'd recommend is getting a study Bible, or something like a study, a devotion to that particular book. So I have the New Daily Study Bible by William Barclay, and I'm lucky enough to own the New Testament collection. So this is, I'm holding a Gospel of Matthew Part 1. So he goes through each section of Matthew. He's got commentary after the text. So you can apply that by reading the text, then you read the commentary, and then you go into the observations, the application, and the prayer. So this can be an extra step. I guess this would be scope. Scripture, commentary, observation, application, and prayer. So you can scope or you can soap. But that's just an option that might be available to you. And our last question.
I just realized I forgot to write it down.
That's okay. So I believe the question was 3 to 5 things that you should be
that you
doing.
should learn early on in a relationship, and even a few things that you should learn before the relationship. It was like a 2-parter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that we talk about a lot, and goes back to Ben Stewart's Single, Dating, Engaged, Married, is this concept of character and chemistry, and that you need both for a marriage to work well. So do you want to enlighten them on the character aspects?
Sure. So, I mean, I think that really character is just like your good character. I don't know the definition of character, but basically that comes from the Lord. Like, he kind of defines character. He defines what is good and what is wrong, and character is kind of chiseled out of that. So we broke it down into 3 different parts of what to look for, because character is like so overarching. Like, it could mean a slew of different things depending on what you're looking for. But just as an overview, it is basically encompasses like who you believe God is, what you think Christ did for us, and then because of that, how, like, what is your response? How do you live your life? How do you love others? How do you serve? How is he reflected through you because of what he did on the cross? So, yeah, I think all of those.
Right. So when you're in the dating process, or even before, start to notice their character. If you can get around them in situations where they are around other people, how do they treat other people? Do they love other people well? When you're in the early dating process, asking questions on date 2, 3, 4, 5 about, like, so I know you're a Christian. Tell me about, like, basically, what's your spiritual background? You know, tell me what you think about God. What do you think about what Jesus did? What do you think our responsibility is on the earth? Ask some questions like that. I would say you don't have to lead in with that conversation, but it's a good thing to bring up. You don't want to wait too long, because the more time you spend talking about the things of this world, you might find some great chemistry, which is what we'll talk about next, but you have to have the character to back it up. So one way or the other, whether it's through observation or asking questions, understand their character and learn about who they are inside, and recognize that charm is deceitful and beauty is vain.
Fleeting.
I think my version says vain or vanity.
I always heard fleeting. Yeah. Yeah, that's really important. Character is huge because that's what's going to be reliable when all else fades. And then also it's important to notice how they love people. Do they love people? And this is where it would be good if you did know them before the relationship to observe their interactions with others and how they love and serve others, how they are putting others above themselves if they do that. So that's like a caveat of that. And then the chemistry part that you kind of already broke down, but I mean, do you even just like enjoy spending time with that person? Like that's important. If chemistry doesn't always mean like physical stuff, just like boundaries doesn't always mean like you can't have sex. Like boundaries could mean boundaries in anything. It's just guardrails that you set up to keep yourself on track. And so chemistry doesn't just mean physical, but like, are you attracted to them? Yeah, that's important. Like, you got to wake up next to this face every day. So you want to make sure that you like it. But obviously, you can be attracted to someone's heart too. Like, I love Nicholas and who he is. And that, like, at first, I didn't... Is this okay to say?
Sure.
At first, I wasn't, like, initially attracted to Nicholas. But... And not that, like, I thought he wasn't good looking, but I just wasn't, like, looking for that, I guess, just because maybe it was a kid that I knew from high school. I don't know what I was thinking.
She likes me because I have a great personality.
No, seriously. The more I got to know him, the more I loved, like, who he was. And then out of that, I got more personality out of him, and I loved that, too. And then three-parter turned into... I noticed the way that he looked and, oh, he actually looks really nice and handsome. And I like that. And he's tall. So that's always a plus. But anyways, so chemistry does mean physical things, but it also just means like your personalities, like your inner people. Do they connect well together? Like, do you like to hang out with them?
Right.
That's so important because you're going to spend every single day together, most likely, at least part of your day.
Yep. Yeah, your life is largely going to be just hanging out. So you need to be around people that you enjoy. And the last thing we'll say here is it's helpful to understand their direction in life, where they're headed. And this can play out in a senior in college, and you're a sophomore and you're dating someone that's a senior that's going to move away, and they're going to be 6 to 8 hours away. They have no intention of moving back to where you are. You need to know those things. And before you get too deep into the relationship, recognize that the right person at the wrong time is the wrong person. So make sure that you understand, are they even looking for a relationship? Are they interested in marriage? Some people are just not ready for marriage. It doesn't mean they're not a great person. That doesn't mean that you don't have great chemistry, but you have to be aligned on the direction of your lives. So understand that and try to learn that information as early as you can, because it will make it so much easier to say, you know what? I know we've enjoyed hanging out together. This has been really fun, but I just don't see this working out. I don't see us on the same track. And that's okay. You know, you can say that, and it's okay to pull away. But when you start having these really deep relationships where you're ignoring largely the character and the direction stuff, and it's all about chemistry, that's where it gets really difficult to break away.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, that's all we really have time for right now.
Yep, we'll keep it concise. But thank you to those people who submitted questions. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah, it's always really good to hear what you guys want to hear. So we'll probably do more of these. Just occasionally throughout, we'll put up a question box and see what y'all want to hear. And it could be like categorized like this was with dating questions, or it could just be generalized. But yeah, this was a good chat. Good questions.
Yes, very good. Well, thank you guys for listening. If you're not already a subscriber to our YouTube channel, you can head over there. You can see us. If you're a regular listener, you can see us now. And if you prefer to listen because you don't want to see our faces, we're sad, but that's okay. You can continue listening on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple. So thanks again for listening, and keep living life in the right lane.